On a clear morning, the ridge of Mont Royal rises above Montreal like the spine of the island itself, an ancient backbone around which the city has grown for nearly 3 centuries. The park that now crowns this hill, Mont Royal Park, is not simply a green lung for a modern metropolis. It is a palimpsest of ambitions, politics, design experiments, and ever-shifting civic identities. Walking its trails is to read, in earth and stone, the story of a city negotiating its geography, its aesthetics, and its social conscience. The story begins in the Colonial era, when the mountain belonged not to a city, but to farmers, loggers, and indigenous peoples whose seasonal movements had long respected the land's ridges and wetlands. The name itself, Mont Royal, is a record of an early French claim. In 1535, Jacques Cartier named the hill in honor of King Francis. For generations after, the mountain remained a mixed-use landscape, a resource, a boundary, and a marker on maps that charted a gradually urbanizing island. By the mid-19th century, Montreal was transforming rapidly. Population growth, industrialization, and waves of immigration were reshaping the island. The idea of setting aside a grand public park on Mont Royal emerged from this era of reformist thinking. City leaders and civic-minded citizens, influenced by urban park movements in London and New York, envisioned a park that would offer moral uplift and physical respite to the urban masses. Into that conversation stepped Frederick Law Olmstead, the American landscape architect, whose work, notably Central Park in New York, had come to define what a modern urban park could be. Olmsted's involvement with Mont Royal Park proved decisive and paradoxical. In 1874, he was commissioned to produce a plan, and his design emphasized naturalistic sweeping vistas, sinuous paths, and the concealment of the city behind a veil of trees. Yet Olmsted's vision was grafted onto a site of rugged topography and pre-existing uses. What emerged from this collaboration with local architect and engineer John William F. Tuckett was not a copy of Central Park, but a hybrid, a romantic landscape that respected the mountain's granite outcrops and watercourses while shaping them into accessible urban scenery. The park opened in stages in the 1870s and 1880s, and its arrival reshaped Montreal's urban culture. Promenading on the mountain became a civic ritual, a place to assert social status as well as to seek leisure. Parks were, in that era, instruments of social engineering. Planners believed that ordered, calming public spaces could temper the disruptive energies of industrial life. Mont Royal served that purpose, but it also became a ground for political expression. Parades, rallies, and public gatherings frequently took place on its slopes, turning leisure space into a forum for collective voice. Throughout the 20th century, the park continued to evolve, reflecting Montreal's changing social geography. The Mont Royal Cross, erected in 1924 and later restored and lit as a civic beacon, became an emblem of the city's cultural and religious sensibilities, at once a landmark and a mirror of shifting attitudes toward religion in public life. The construction of roads, lookouts, and recreational facilities in the interwar and post-war years responded to new modes of mobility and leisure. But they also provoked debates about preservation versus modernization that have recurred through the park's history. Perhaps the most revealing episodes in Mont Royal's story are the tensions between conservationists and developers. As Montreal's skyline rose and the pressure for housing and infrastructure increased, the mountain's defenders mobilized language about heritage and ecology to resist encroachment. This activism produced legal and political instruments that would ensure the park's protection. The creation of a clearly defined parkway system and the later designation of portions of the mountain as protected green space were victories not only of policy, but of a civic imagination that treated the mountain as part of a communal commons rather than a tract of privatizable land. Cultural life on Mont Royal has long been a barometer of Montreal's hybridity. The park has hosted concerts, outdoor theater, and festivals that reflect the city's bilingual and multicultural composition. It has been a site where Francophone and Anglophone communities intersect, and where newcomers have woven their own rituals into older rhythms. Artists and photographers have repeatedly returned to the park's lookouts and wooded slopes, finding in its vistas a condensed image of Montreal. Water, island, city, and sky bound together around the ridge. Natural history is another thread that runs through Mont Royal's narrative. The park's ecology, its variety of oak, maple, and beech, its migratory bird routes, the interplay of exposed bedrock and pockets of wetland, has shaped human use as decisively as the city's plans. Conservation projects in recent decades have emphasized habitat restoration and biodiversity, reframing the mountain not only as a site of leisure, but an urban refuge for species struggling in fragmented landscapes. These efforts have deepened public appreciation for the park's non-human inhabitants and have aligned civic stewardship with contemporary ecological science. Yet, Mont Royal is also a place of memory, with small monuments and inscriptions that gesture to particular moments and personalities, political figures, cultural icons, and ordinary citizens whose lives became entwined with the mountain. Each plaque narrows history into a point, a date, a name, but together they form a constellation of social histories that invite closer listening. In winter, the park's frozen slopes host their own rituals, skating, sledding, and a particular winter aesthetic that has been celebrated in literature and painting, a reminder that seasonal rhythms remain central to how the city imagines itself. Into the 21st century, pressures persist. Climate change, urban sprawl, and shifting patterns of public use all present new challenges. Yet Mont Royal Park endures as a negotiated landscape, one that has been continually remade by architects, activists, civic institutions, and everyday Montrealers. Its paths still incline toward the summit, but those paths are lined with stories of a 19th century civic aspiration to civilize industrial life, of the complex choreography between conservation and development, of a multicultural city finding common ground on a granite ridge. To move through Mont Royal is to move through Montreal's history. The park is not merely a backdrop to urban life, but a participant in it, a place where the city has rehearsed its hopes and anxieties, where political rallies and quiet walks have shared the same slopes. In that double role, sanctuary and stage, Mont Royal remains quintessentially Montreal, a terrain of memory, an ecology of leisure, and a public heart whose pulse has kept time with the city's own transformation.
I hope you've enjoyed this video. This channel has more videos of Montreal in the Montreal playlist, which is linked in the description below the video. Channel also has more videos of my adventures bicycling through Latin America, Southeast Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, and I have playlists for all those countries that I've traveled through, available on this same channel, Hum of the Earth. So for more videos of Montreal and other cool places around the world, you can subscribe to the channel by clicking on the red subscribe button and clicking on the bell to be notified when new videos come out. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.